If you gave me one word to sum up the Houston Rockets right now, it would be new. I mean, actually, you could give me a few because it would be new, different, unique, fresh, exciting. It doesn't matter. Any of those words, you get the point, because this is a team that a lot of people said they got fleeced in the James Harden deal. They would take a while to rebuild, all of these things, etc., etc. And, well, they're clearly not waiting around to rebuild, because they not just selected Jalen Green with the second overall pick, but then a further 3 first-round picks in just one draft. And I already liked this young core. I already thought it was pretty underrated in terms of the likes of Kenyon Martin Jr., who had a really, really good end to the season. Christian Wood, of course, is pretty well known, and as is Kevin Porter Jr., Jay Sean Tate, even Armani Brooks was one of the better three-point shooters out of any rookie in a long time, considering the amount of games he played. So I already liked what they were doing. Sure, have they made some decisions which were probably a little bit questionable, the likes of Victor Oladipo instead of Karis LeVert and whatnot? Yeah, sure. But every team does that. The Houston Rockets are going pretty far to rectifying that decision in just the space of a year, going on to draft 4 first-round picks, a lot of which people really liked a lot. So I want to talk about that. Now, before I even do that, if you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this video. I got quite a few requests for the Rockets video. There were so many things to take into consideration as someone who's not a draft expert. I couldn't just reel it off the top and be like, oh, Alperen Sengun, he's good at this, he's good at that. Yeah, I had to look into it, and I didn't want to do it without actually doing a little bit of research into these prospects and what the Rockets are getting themselves into. So that's why it took a little bit more time than you would have expected. But anyways, let's just get into it. Let's talk about Jalen Green. I think we have to talk about Jalen Green first. We'll talk about the other prospects. We'll talk about some of the other players. But you've got to start with Jalen Green, because this is the guy that you want to be your franchise piece. Kevin Porter Jr. is nice. Christian Wood is nice. All of these other guys are nice. But with the second overall pick, with someone who a lot of people have said would have been the first overall pick in a lot of other drafts. I mean, some people thought he would have been the first overall pick in this draft. There were Pistons executives tossing up between Green and Cunningham. So that's the kind of level of prospect he is. He's someone who averaged 18 points a game in the G League against grown men. 46% from the field, 36% from 3. He's a scorer. I don't think anyone questions his scoring ability. Pretty much everyone seems to believe he is going to be the best scorer in this draft, and maybe the best scorer in the NBA at some point, or at least a top 10 scorer. So that's what you're getting yourself. But you're also getting yourself someone who is an elite athlete, which gives him defensive potential. His playmaking improved throughout the year. As I said, he played against grown men. This wasn't college. This was against the likes of Kevin Porter Jr., who we then saw dominate at different times in the NBA. Jordan Poole is another name. Armani Brooks, who again went to the NBA. You know all about G League players. It's a very solid league, and players can come up from the G League and transition into the NBA in the same season. So Green can definitely do it from one season to the next. That's the kind of competition he was going up against. And his G League coach said this about him. He said he compared him to the likes of Kobe Bryant, PG-13 when it comes to just having that kind of work ethic. Jarrett Jack, an NBA veteran, also said his work ethic was incredibly good. He was going to be a star. There's been a lot of praise on Green. I mean, his scoring is elite. As I said, his shooting percentages were good against grown men. He was averaging a decent amount of points. He can come off the dribble. He can come off the catch. He can step back for 3. He can run in transition. He can attack the rim. He's going to be able to draw fouls because of his length, his athleticism, his skill set, his ball handle. Like, he's got pretty much every move when it comes to scoring the ball. It's kind of that simple. Defensively, he's got the upside with his length, with his athleticism. He can improve on his decision making. He's not the finished product yet, but at the very least, you're getting someone that's going to be a good scorer. And then also, he could definitely improve his playmaking, his defense, and all of those aspects of the game. There's a reason why a lot of people said he would have been the number 1 pick in a lot of other drafts. I mean, Jalen Green, I don't even need to go into depth. We got to get through other prospects as well, but he's going to be good. He's going to be good at the very least. I think he could be very special. And then looking at the guy who they got next, someone who they traded into the first round to get, despite already having 3 first-round picks, and that was Alperen Sengun. Sengun was someone who I've seen people have as high as 10 to 5 in that range, and then other people weren't as high on him, but I don't think I saw anyone really have him lower than where the Rockets picked him up in the mid-first round. That seems like a good pick to most people. I don't think anyone disagreed with that pick. Turkish League MVP at 18. I mean, that's impressive. Averaging nearly 20 and 10 in the Turkish League at 18 as a center in a position where obviously you're going up against bigger bodies. The Turkish League is no joke. Playing for Besiktas, that is no joke either. This is a big league, big expectations, playing for a big club, and to put up those kind of numbers on over 60% from the field. He's got promise as an outside shooter because he shot 80% from the free throw line. He's got touch inside. He's got every single post move you could want. Spin, hook shot, either hand, soft touch off the glass. He's that kind of guy. He's that kind of guy offensively. There's a reason he was putting up elite numbers and winning an MVP as a teenager in a serious professional grown man league. Alperen Sengun is legitimately going to be a scorer similar to Jalen Green. He's got those kind of traits as well, just in the big man variety. And then the promise comes from the fact that also he's a nice passer. He's got some passing traits for sure. He's also got promise to be a good three-point shooter. As I said, 80% from the free throw line. He shot some step-back threes. Like, the man can shoot the ball. I think it's only a matter of time before he becomes at least a competent three-point shooter, maybe even better than that. He's got all the skill offensively. Defensively, people have questioned him, but I think he's got some decent athleticism. He's not going to be a liability there. He's not going to be like the next guy who we may as well just transition into, because Sengun is someone like Green. I think he's going to be a good scorer. He's got a lot of tricks in his arsenal. He's going to be a good offensive player. The defense is going to be the question mark, but I think he can be good on that end of the floor as well. But someone who is not going to be questioned about his defense, Usman Garuba, I mean, he's already playing for Spain, and he's already playing decent minutes. I saw him playing against Team USA. He blocked Jason Tatum. He switched on to Kevin Durant. He switched on to Bam Adebayo. Do you want any more proof? Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo? What? Do you need any more proof what he can be defensively? He guards the pick and roll really well, which is kind of all you want from a center in these days. A 4/5, I guess. He's a little bit versatile in that aspect. 6'8", 7'3" wingspan. Can shoot 30% from three. Well, that's probably a little bit of a reach because he only averaged 4 points a game. Offensively, yeah, you're really on both ends of the spectrum with Sengun and Green, who are great offensive players. They're going to be great scorers, or at least it looks like they will be. And then Garuba hasn't shown much as a scorer. Most of his points are going to come in transition, are going to come off putbacks, offensive rebounds, and cutting to the rim and a few screen and rolls. That's pretty much it. But defensively, he's special, switchable, versatile, can guard the pick and roll, does everything you want from a big man. Defensively, he's strong, he's agile. It kind of says it all. The fact that Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo, you name it, he was switching on to them. Spain in a quarterfinal. He played more minutes than Marc Gasol and Pau Gasol. Yes, they're in their 30s, but in a quarterfinal against Team USA, he played more minutes than those guys. Like, come on now. So he's going to be good as well. And then looking at the last guy, someone who I don't know as much about. I tried to look into him, but there just wasn't as much. He's a scorer. Josh Christopher. He was a highly touted high school prospect. He's someone that can score the ball. There's question marks over his decision-making, his shooting, a few things, his athleticism, or at least not being the greatest athlete. He's not a bad athlete, but whether his athleticism will be enough given some of his other question marks in terms of his decision-making and whatnot. I think the opinion ranges on Josh Christopher from being the guy who's going to be that explosive scorer that could come off the bench or start and just create shots at will, score whenever he wants, any kind of handle move, any kind of dribble move, step back threes, mid-range jumpers, and he's just going to figure it out because he's that kind of a basketball player. And then there are people who say, well, I guess his decision-making, his shooting, mechanics, all of these things might never get figured out and he might struggle. I don't know enough about him to really give my decision-making, but I think he's someone that you can be excited about at the very least because he's definitely got a lot of moves in his arsenal. He's definitely going to give you some highlights for sure. And, well, you're just going for the best pick available at this point. If you're going for a little bit of a swing, which he's not someone that went higher than most people anticipated. People anticipated him to be late first round around this range. But if you're just going for someone as a swing that could be a really good scorer and you think has high upside, that's what you take. You already had 3 guys that were great prospects beforehand, and getting Christopher is no different in my opinion. I think it's worth a pick as well. And then moving on from the draft, because Houston are much more than just the picks that they got. They've got Kenyon Martin Jr., as I mentioned, second half of the season. He was averaging a decent amount of points a game, decent amount of rebounds. He was really, really legitimately good. Blocked Gobert a couple of times, was posterizing people. He's got elite athleticism. He was shooting the 3-ball well. He was doing everything well. He just improved so much. He's someone that I think's going to slip under the radar because you've got Garuba, you've got Christopher, you've got Green, of course, all of these guys that just got drafted, plus you've got Kevin Porter Jr., even Jay Sean Tate, and Christian Wood. All of these guys get more mention than Kenyon Martin Jr., but he was incredibly impressive for someone that was a late second-round pick and people didn't really anticipate much out of in his first year, and he did a ton. I know it was on a Rockets team that wasn't really exactly trying to win, but you still got to put up the numbers against good opposition, and he did exactly that. Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr., you kind of know about those guys. I don't think I need to go too much into depth about them. I really like the idea of them developing their pick and roll. Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green. It's a lot of scoring. That is a lot of scoring. If you're trying to score the ball, Those three right there are going to score you the ball. Obviously, they signed Daniel Tice as well, which some people questioned. They do have a lot of bigs now, but at the end of the day, Daniel Tice is on a decent contract. He's a good player. If you think Garuba and Sengun will take a couple of years, then Tice is a good guy to step in front of them. He can play with Christian Wood. He can play as a 4, as a 5. He can come off the bench. He's a versatile guy that makes a lot of sense. $9 million a year is far from an overpay for someone of his quality. Good player. A lot of bigs, but it'll work out. You can always trade that contract. I don't think it's ever a big deal. People make it out to be, oh, now they've got 4 centers. Okay, well, they'll now trade one. Like, it's really not a big deal at all. So Tice is a good signing. They re-signed David Nawaba, a nice defensive energy guy that's going to be solid as well. He was solid this year. I like what Houston have got going on. For a team that people thought was in the mud. Oh, wow, they're going to take a while to get out of this Harden situation. Oh, well, they stuffed up that Harden situation. Look what they got. Well, they got Jalen Green. They got another 3 great prospects. Kenyon Martin Jr. was unearthed. Armani Brooks was good. They got a lot of things going on in Houston. There's just a lot that's going to be exciting because there's so many unknown quantities right now. I think Green, Porter Jr., and Christian Wood will undoubtedly be the most exciting players, but don't sleep on Martin Jr., don't sleep on Jayshawn Tate, don't sleep on any of those guys because at the very least, they're going to be solid role players. And I think Kenyon Martin Jr. definitely has some star potential. He definitely has some upside if you can figure out some of the aspects of his game because the athleticism, the skill that he has as well at his size, yeah, pretty impressive.